We get started?
Let's get started.
Okay. Well, welcome to our second Facebook Live. We're going to be talking about lessons from quarantine. We're now 8 weeks into the COVID-19 lockdown for most of us, and um, we're both seeing different struggles that couples are having, some better, some not better. So we wanted to hop back on and talk a little bit more about what we're seeing and what we're offering, what we're finding that couples are benefiting from to share.
Great. And maybe I'll introduce you. How does that sound as opposed to the usual introduce
Go for
yourself
it.
thing?
Sure.
It is my great pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend, Carolyn Sharp, who is a couples therapist up in Seattle. And Carolyn, not only is she well known in Seattle for doing her couples work, and as she's also PACT trained couples therapist, which we're going to get a little bit into. PACT stands for a psychobiological approach to couples therapy, and she also runs retreats. And you can find more about her retreats at secureconnections.com, right?
Retreats.com. Yeah.
Secure Connection Retreats.
Secure Connections Retreats.
How many S's are
.com.
there in that? I'm confused.
S, secure. Connections, S. Retreats, S.
Got it. Okay, 3 S's, I believe.
Spelling lessons.
Thank you.
You get a bonus spelling lesson from this.
I felt like I was doing a pretty good job introducing you until I got into that. Okay, so can you do a better job introducing me than I just did?
Well, this is Jason Brand, my colleague and friend, also an advanced PACT practitioner out of Berkeley, California. He also runs a podcast called the Human Nurture Podcast, educating PACT nerds like ourselves and anyone interested in PACT, the deeper theory and scientific information, interviewing all kinds of cool people, including Stan Tatkin, our colleague and friend, and the teacher and founder of all of these things. So,
Great.
welcome, Jason. Thanks for being here.
Great. And what
How
what
have things been going? How have things been going for you guys in quarantine?
for us
For you
personally?
in your home, yeah.
Yeah, for us personally, thank you for asking. I would say, well, first of all, I think it's important to recognize. I mean, we both have jobs that we're able to go to. Not actually physically. Jen is at home, and my office I'm actually able to go to. But so that's great to be able to go to work, and my kids are um, they're at home, which adds a level of kind of difficulty, but also there's something nice about having everybody home. So there's a lot of good parts about it. I'd say the struggles are that it's a stressful time. That there's a level of stress from outside. There's everybody on top of each other, and we have all had our meltdowns, our breakdowns, our difficulties, and we're going to talk more in this Facebook Live about what what we're learning from those and how we're helping couples. I would say, the thing that I'm really trying to keep in mind about these moments is that it's just that it's inevitable. One, that we have these times where where people have a hard time, and two, that I try to get out of the thinking of like, oh, I can't. I'm not allowed to have my feelings, or I'm not allowed to get upset. I mean, sometimes I think in this time there's just a need to kind of let some of this out. And so I would say those are the down moments, is when people are struggling together in our house. How about you? What are you finding?
Well, between us, my husband and I have, I think at last count, 37 children.
Wow,
Um,
sounds like a
and
busy
like
house.
64 pets,
Uh-huh.
or anyway, that's what it feels like.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a very, very crowded house a lot of the time. I have the benefit also of coming to my office because otherwise I wouldn't be able to privately have video sessions with people, and it's a walk away. So I'm very lucky in that. But I'm very lucky because I have a partner. My husband is very, very good at reading my nervous system and knowing what I need and being very supportive. So he's able to see, okay, she needs some quiet or she needs some alone time, and very supportively give that to me. And I hope that I'm as good at reading him and providing him with the care that he needs. So he's very intuitive about it. So I feel very lucky. There's, I hate being in quarantine, but I said to him laughingly the other day, there's no one I'd rather be stuck in quarantine with than
Sweet.
you. So they're tough days having that many kids, and finding special time for just the two of us has been a challenge, but
Yeah.
we're lucky in a lot of ways. So,
Yeah, sweet. Well, we made it through our what one of the big challenges, which is Jen gave me a haircut yesterday, which is I
I gave
uh,
Jeff a
I
haircut
missed my
a
barber,
month ago.
and I actually did her
Looks
back.
great.
Oh, thanks. I did her back a little bit too. So that's a tough one. Is the haircuts?
I haven't entrusted Jeff with my bangs
No,
yet.
okay.
That's a little higher risk, but anyway.
I got a
So
question for you. It says host is not joined yet. Is that something we need to worry about? I'm seeing that in your window. Is that something that we need to think about or worry about?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll hop on. You're seeing that on Facebook, or you're
No, I'm
seeing
seeing that
that?
in my
um,
window here. So just a little technical question.
Nope. Well, it looks like we're both on there, so I'm not
Great.
going to worry about it.
Okay. Great. So let's assume we're going here. Um,
Okay.
so we were on what was that, a couple weeks
A
ago?
month
A
ago.
month
No, it was a
ago.
month ago.
Boy,
It was
time.
April, I know, April 4th or
Wow.
April 6th, was our last one. So yeah, it's been a month.
Yeah, and I mean, time has been so weird, but I think we
Yeah.
kind of wanted to do a check-in about what we're seeing in our couples, and what we're seeing in our work, and then also talk, of course, about this great program, this great thing that we're doing called Wonder Couples, and give
Yeah.
people some information about that.
Yeah.
Anything else that any other agenda
Well,
items?
I think I want to tell people that we're going a level deeper into some of the more significant struggles people are having. And so, if people feel at all lost listening to this, to go back and listen to the first Facebook Live, which is both on my Facebook page and on our YouTube channel, where we've got videos available for people to watch. We've got some exercises to help couples practice things, skills that we found really beneficial in the classes that we've done. So if people want to review what we talked about a month ago, it is available to them. So we're
And
not going to be covering stuff in the same way tonight.
yeah, and that's at wondercouples.us. You can find that you can find the Wonder Couples, all the classes, and then if you go to the bottom, you'll see little links that lead to our YouTube page, that lead actually to your blog, which has a lot of good material on it. And so you can find all that there, including our contact information.
Cool. All right. Well, so let's start by giving people a quick PACT introduction, since that is the orientation from which we provide all of our care, our therapy, our retreats, your blog post, your podcast,
Hmm.
and these chats in our classes. So, do you want to say a little bit about PACT?
Sure. I said earlier, PACT stands for a psychobiological approach to couples therapy. It is led and created by a really wonderful guy named Stan Tatkin, who is in Calabasas, California, and we train with Stan. And other, there's now, boy, it's a pretty large group of well-trained PACT therapists across the country, and I mean, just to say it simply, the main foundation of PACT is about building secure, functioning relationships, and I'll just pick something, just a one place to start, and then you can add a little bit. I would say for me that a secure functioning relationship is one where I have a sort of a higher I keep in mind an understanding of the couple, of who we are as a couple, and that we either sort of sink or swim together as a couple. So there's no it's not like, well, I'm doing okay, but my partner's really hurting right now. It's like, no, we are in this together, and where
Mhm.
you go, I go. And it's really a way of thinking about, you mentioned nervous systems earlier. It's really a way of thinking about, well, we are actually two separate people, of course, and there's room to be separate people within this. But when we're in this close relationship, in this intense way of really being our person, having a go-to person who we spend so much time with, especially right now, our nervous systems do really begin to wire together. And so we are really, really dependent on each other. And so taking care of the couple, that's how I would define secure functioning. Anything to add, subtract, take away?
I think it's no, I think that's a great summary. And there's tons more information available about the PACT Institute about what PACT is on either of our websites or on the PACT Institute website, so people can check that out. But that's all we're talking about is building a secure, functioning relationship and trying to help people create that healthy ecosystem to live from as a launching pad. And this quarantine is definitely providing lots of opportunity to realize how interdependent we are, how necessary it is to take care of the relationship.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, and one thing that we talk about impact is that we're building sort of an ecosystem for our
mhm,
couple, and I don't think there's any time, I don't, at least not in my lifetime, where I have felt more of a sense of the idea that we are really, really responsible for taking care of the ecosystem around, that was within our couple,
mhm,
and just being in such close quarters right now, of there being so
mhm.
much uncertainty. At the end of the day, if you that taking care of each other, we can really see how that is the one thing that, in a crazy turned upside down world, that's the one thing that we can actually control
Yeah,
and really
absolutely.
take responsibility for.
Mhm. Yeah, and really has immediate benefit, and I think we're seeing that in our classes for sure. At least I have a number of couples that are doing the classes and seeing me, and they're reporting back that it's being of great benefit. Just taking that hour to practice these skills that we talk so much about in therapy, and that they talk about amongst themselves. That practicing it in that dedicated time has really helped. So,
Hmm.
but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Yes, I'm excited
Yeah,
to talk about that
so
too.
it's been another month since, the pandemic quarantine started.
Hmm.
So now a lot of people are at 7, 8 weeks, 7, 8, 9 weeks that they've been under quarantine.
Unbelievable.
And what are we seeing that has changed over the last month? Do you want
Yeah, I mean, I would say that there's a sense of disbelief that we're all still in this. I think that my sense is that people are in shock. That this has been, the world has been turned upside down in ways that I'm seeing, a I think people were in shock in the beginning, but I think that there's an ongoing sense of, oh my God, how is it that I don't go to restaurants anymore? How is it that, that I don't go into work, that I'm not sitting in a 2-hour commute? I think that my sense is that we are still really catching up with this, and we're not really making sense of it yet, as much as just being in shock about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's one of the responses that I'm seeing. I'm seeing it sort of on this spectrum,
Hmm.
and I mean, that is to say, everybody's having a different reaction and different response. Every relationship is a little different. Every person is a little different in terms of what they're reacting to. And the main message I want to reiterate over and over again is that everything is normal in terms of the reactions that we're seeing, but I'm finding them sort of falling on a spectrum where I would place that shock, disbelief, surreal feeling right in the middle
Hmm.
between folks that I'm seeing that have done this sort of depressed surrender. It's sort of a form of acceptance where, okay, we're in this and this is what we got to do. And boy, I want to swear right now. I shouldn't. It's Facebook Live. Um, you know, dang, this is really hard. All the way to then there's shock, and then all the way at the other end, the more positive end, is the people that have gotten really determined. All right, we got to get through this. We're going to make the most of this. We're going to learn Italian. We're going to learn how to bake. We're going to redo our garden. That are
Hmm.
really making the most out of the time in quarantine. I think everybody. I put that in quotes because I think everybody is making the most of it. I think just surviving this is an accomplishment.
Hmm.
I think coming out okay as a couple is an accomplishment. Not killing our children is an accomplishment. That's a joke. Um, and so I think that anywhere along that spectrum is totally normal.
Yeah, yeah, and I do. I agree that that there. I think people are really making something out of this. Either some people it's just slowing down. It's just appreciating the oh wow, this is what my yard looks like at 10 a.m. I just never been back there. Or this is
Right.
wow, this is the natural world that I don't usually get to see in this way. And some people are more sort of like industrious with the time.
Mhm.
But I also want to make it clear, and just you said this a little bit, but I really want to just emphasize the fact that I think that we do put such pressure on ourselves to perform. And if ever there was a time to take a step back and go, wait a minute, there's a lot of over performance, I think, in just in our culture anyway. So I don't want to give anybody the idea that we're selling a kind of like you should train for a marathon right now, or you should become
You
a
should work on your relationship every day, and
right, 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 right. We're
yeah.
and I like what you said about we're all just kind of getting through this.
Mhm, mhm. So let's get a little bit more specific about some of the struggles that we're seeing so that couples know they're not alone in these struggles.
Hmm.
Do you want to lead off and talk about some of the more pronounced struggles that you've been seeing or that you've noticed?
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that I've been noticing the most is anxiety,
Mhm.
and a specific flavor of anxiety, which is that there's so much that's out of control in the environment, and a kind of um, a feeling of just getting so focused on fixing the whether it be the person in the relationship or the child, or or the worry about that there's real financial worries. And that's another thing that I actually just want to pause on, is that there's within this there's people are really experiencing, some people have been really on the front lines, and then there's people uh who haven't been impacted as much about it, but they're still sheltered in place. So there's all these different experiences that are
Absolutely.
happening. But one thing that I've seen sort of across the board is people really trying to control what they can,
Mhm.
and pouring their sort of energy into that. And I think that makes sense. It's like you gotta hammer, and there's a nail, and you want to, but it can also become a kind of um, over focus on that, and not as much of a focus on the kind of not looking at the bigger picture of what's happening.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I'm so glad you said that because I had meant to say it earlier and I didn't. That, we're talking about relationship issues, and some couples don't even have the luxury. Some people obviously aren't in relationships, but those that are in relationships, some don't have the luxury of looking at their relationship because their physical, financial, health survival is so at the forefront that they can't take time to tend to each other. And so I just want to thank you for saying that and acknowledge that even further, that this
Hmm.
is a level of care that some people don't have the ability to focus on. So
Hmm.
anyway,
Hmm.
and then piggybacking on what you were saying, I am really seeing a lot of people with anxiety issues, people without anxiety issues that are having them for the first time,
Mm.
which can look like in some of the couples and people that I'm seeing, um, the anxiety symptoms of irritability, of difficulty, that's sort of cognitive functioning, of being able to focus, being able to follow through on tasks. That's sort of, you pick up one thing and then you can't remember where you were going with it.
Mhm.
And then you can't remember what you were saying, that this is something that anxiety and, trauma, in fact, causes, which
Hmm.
we're all sort of living through a collective worldwide trauma right now with this virus. Um, so, the anxiety symptoms being a lot worse. People having difficulty sleeping, having nightmares, their appetite going away, or they're sort of overeating to soothe themselves,
Yeah.
and impulsivity and sort of add that agitated, just being impulsive in the choices that they're making,
Hmm.
being a lot worse. So, for any folks out there, that's totally normal. A lot of people are struggling with that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a fine line here because, if let's like take the eating example. I mean, that there's certainly a way that there's a good kind of comfort that comes from eating, from eating more, and I think so that there's that, and then there's the sort of using it as a way to just push away the feelings and to not deal with them, and then that often comes back up, and we see with couples, couples fighting about um you know I see couples where, but when they're fighting about somebody eating too much or somebody putting on weight and things
Hmm.
like that, and I do think that one, for us as couples therapists, one thing we're really trying to do is to help couples to see each other as a kind of check and balance about, certainly, giving each other more room and space to not have to be, so disciplined right now, but at the same time acting as a ballast where it's like, whoa, I know that when you drink that much that it's not good for you, and I want to help you to not be in that position, where you feel bad about, or where you do things you regret when it comes to substances, for example. um,
Hmm.
you have anything other to add on what the struggles that couples are facing?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of them. The exacerbation of old struggles, I mean, couples that we're seeing are coming to us for help. They want to work on things. They want to improve their communication or their trust, or learn to fight successfully, or they have difficulty with honesty in the relationship, keeping secrets, that
Hmm.
all those sorts of things, the spectrum. And I'm finding that all of the struggles that couples were having prior to quarantine are in some couples getting exacerbated.
Hmm.
As our stress levels are higher, our nervous systems are sort of in fight or flight more often. We're turning to coping skills that have worked throughout our life that may be not helpful to our relationship, like drinking or excessive computer use,
Hmm.
or um, holing up in a room and sort of hiding from our partner. All of those things I have found in a lot of couples, they're getting worse.
Hmm.
And because everybody is so stressed, they're having difficulty staying calm in those moments, regulating their nervous systems, regulating each other's nervous systems is harder. And so they're more quickly to go to, a high temperature conversation in a high temperature way. So they're having a big fight over something that in a calmer time they might be able to go, you know what, this is something we thought about, we're supposed to practice doing this thing. Those things are going out the window. And
Hmm.
so regular issues that couples have, I'm finding pretty universally in the couples that I'm working with, are worse now, or harder to manage now.
Hmm.
So that's a lot of what I'm helping couples work through, in how to get through this time and recognize, okay, this is harder now. How do we get through this given
Yeah.
how hard it is right now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. And I mean, I think so much of our work as couples therapists, pack therapists, is to have people help each other in the
Mm,
areas where they struggle. And what I'm seeing a lot of is a kind of, well, I go over here and help myself. And or somebody who says, I get really angry at you when you're not helping me enough. Um, and then what that creates, that and I agree that we're seeing couples returning back to sort of old coping strategies and not turning to each other as much to kind of help, two heads are better than one. And that they get convinced that, for good reason, because there's so much stress on the system, that just doing it my way is the best way. And they forget that, oh, I've learned, through couples therapy and something I know sort of through common sense, which is that when this is sort of, when I'm doing this with my partner, when we're doing it together, it feels a lot better when I have their stamp of approval and we're doing it together.
And that's just really hard for a lot of couples to do right now,
Mm-hmm.
because this much time together in circumstances that are so far from ideal. People want to be at their office. They want to be able to go out and do the things they do. So there's the general irritability everybody is feeling, not getting to live their regular life, go to the gym, have childcare that is not them, have teachers that are teaching their kids that are not them.
Mm-hmm.
The irritability and stress, they have no place to go with that irritability and stress. They can't take it out on their kids. Or shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so they end up taking it out on each other, which results in the problems that I was talking about. And in the sense that they don't see each other as allies in these worst circumstances when they're really stressed. It isn't necessarily that they're seeing each other as allies
Mm-hmm.
in these couples that are really struggling. It's like you, the person that I've spent all this time with, are sort of the last person I want to get support from because you are the cause of all of my problems. They're not. That's just what the only place our brain has to go with it. And I nicknamed this quarantine rage, that we have these irrational responses to sort of everyday stressors, but right now they don't feel like everyday
Mm-hmm.
stressors. They feel like, being out of milk feels catastrophic in some circumstances, or I shouldn't say milk, like half and half feels catastrophic.
Uh-huh.
And so we
Uh-huh.
scream at our partner and then realize, wait a second, that's not that big of a deal, or it's right there to my right. And my husband and I have laughed about
Yeah.
my or his quarantine rage, these moments where we're just irrationally angry at everything.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some of that. I'm also seeing people holding their tongues too much and making themselves too
Yes.
small, that
Mhm,
like, and then they, and then when in
mhm,
therapy a lot, or in couples therapy, a lot of the job is to help them to kind of bring out some of the
yeah,
ways that they feel like, God, to their partner, it feels like there's just not been enough space for me in the
mhm,
relationship, and so I keep myself quiet, which,
mhm,
is not a good dynamic to get into.
yeah. It's a
Uh,
really bad habit to form. Yeah,
mhm,
I call it tiptoeing. They're tiptoeing around each other and not saying as much. And I
mhm,
have been using the analogy to walk on your heels. Use
mm,
your land on your heels. Like
mhm.
don't be tiptoeing in your relationship, because that will just build up over time, and then you have resentment from these things that you haven't expressed
Yeah.
for weeks and weeks and weeks. That where you put your shoes has been irritating me, but I haven't said it, and now I want to let you have it over something else.
Mhm,
So be
mhm.
sure to clear the decks, clear, or sort of clear the queue of complaints, so that they're not building up over time.
Yeah, yeah, and this is, I mean, what I'm loving about doing Wonder Couples is that it gives people a chance to kind of, to settle their nervous systems together,
Mhm,
and,
mhm,
because really, I think, I don't know if you agree with this, but I think arguments, and some fighting is totally just, necessary right now. I would
yeah,
say. I would say arguments,
absolutely.
are necessary because we're carrying a huge burden, and also arguments provide a way to kind of make sense out of where, whether it's, I've been holding my tongue around your drinking, or I'm reacting with quarantine rage, as you called it, because there is something really to look at here that needs to be addressed underneath it about what's happening in our relationship. And but the trick is that you can't do that if people can't stay within what we talk about, the window of tolerance,
Mhm,
which is basically a way of saying, like, keeping some perspective on each other and being able to take care of each other even while you're in a fight. And what I like about the Wonder Couples classes is that it gives people an opportunity to create a baseline where they're settled together, and then when the inevitable fights, struggles, difficulties come up, they'll be more likely to be able to use them productively, is the hope.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. Well, and it also provides a reset for folks. This hour long a relationship nap or something that is really restorative for the couple helps. And the term I always use with my couples is putting good into the relationship.
Mm, mhm.
Putting that focus on just doing something that's good for the relationship helps sort of create a little bit more flexibility in the relationship to tolerate the stress together. That is just getting heaped on all of us right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would
So
say in a world with, where the boundaries have been completely blurred between, because of because it's
right.
shelter in place, that it does that you can be intentional in ways that I don't think that you could be before, I mean, you could say tonight, hour and a half, Wednesday night, please, we're going to close the door and we're just going to go do this
Mhm,
couples, it's not therapy, couples class called Wonder
right.
Couples. Or it doesn't have to be Wonder Couples. It can be we're just going to kind of watch a movie together and we need space
Mhm,
and time, or we're going to sit outside and just be together quietly. Like, I do think there's real opportunities for couples to define a space here in which
mhm,
they take care of each other and build that sort of
mhm,
shock absorber into the system.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Is there any other sort of struggles that we think is important that you think is important to name for people before we move on to what we've seen be helpful to couples? And if
I was
anybody
kind of
has
Yeah.
questions, post them. Go ahead and type them in, and we'll answer them as they come up.
Do we have
But
people on, by the way? Are there people?
yeah, we have a few people on.
Oh, great.
They've sort of people are popping on and off. Yeah,
Hi out there. And yeah, please, if you ask questions, it makes it easier for us to kind of ground this in what you need. Um,
yeah.
and I was kind of hopping ahead there in terms of struggles. I would say the one other struggle that I think is, one thing that I'm seeing is that as this stretches on, and we could be in this for like, now they're saying 36 months or something, I mean, that sorry if you hadn't
Now
heard
you
that.
just put me into shock.
that
36.
they're saying, like, there's going to be waves of this. And sorry, I hate that. I mean, it's but if if there are time limited things, I'm seeing people who like, certain people have made the decision, like, we're not going to deal with our relationship until a child leaves for college, or
Right.
even we tiptoe around because we've got a kid in the house who's with special needs, and we just got to get them to school in the fall. Like, this is going to be a while. I mean, there's
Mhm,
real stuff that people, I think, are realizing, like, we actually have to deal with this, but at the same time, it's an awful time to make like big life decisions, right?
right.
I mean, where it's like, this is not the day to decide if you should end your marriage or not. It might give you more information about,
Mhm.
kind of why things aren't working, but it's not a great time for that. Can you add a little bit to that? Why is it not a great time?
Well, I mean, like I was talking about, this trauma that we're all going through really messes up our nervous system, our functioning at all, and floods our system with all of these stress hormones and neurotransmitters, these chemicals, which mess up our ability to think clearly. They really screw up our functioning, our brain functioning. So, I mean, they say this about big life events when you've had a death in the family, when you've made a big move, not to make when you've had a breakup, not to make big decisions in the midst of that because of all the uh, recovery that needs to happen in your brain for your brain to be able to actually make good, solid decisions. So, as
Hmm.
much as I can, and I have a lot of couples that are really, really struggling to stay together, to stay positive, to stay functional, to not really go nuclear with each other in their fights.
Hmm.
And so, I have couples that are really contemplating whether they should split up. Um, and you know fortunately or unfortunately, many are stuck in quarantine together, so they don't have an option to physically separate. So they're sort of stuck in a physical space, and that is allowing them to sort of take the pressure off. Do we need to break up? So yeah, I mean, it is a terrible time to make that kind of decision. So just focus on what you can each do and what you can do as a pair, to get through this really crazy, awful time.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that then after the end of it, because this is temporary, then you can reevaluate. And I mean, there are couples in extraordinary stress. I mean, I
Yeah.
have um, physicians that are working on the front lines of COVID, and first responders, and they are going through a whole other level of trauma. And I have folks whose jobs are on the line. So there's really intense stress happening. So um, really giving people the benefit, giving each other the benefit of the doubt, and whatever tools they need to get through that, whatever support they need to get through that, so that we can make the decision
Yeah.
in a calmer place.
Yeah. And not to sound too woo woo, but I think trust the process. I mean, I think that there is I think, um, while you being in trauma is not the time, but I do think that there will be a time when things will calm down, and that will be a real time to make some decisions about where you want to go.
Mhm.
And I would trust that bigger process that that our bodies and go through, our minds go through when we're going through extraordinary circumstances. I think that
Yeah.
one of the nice things that comes out of this is people often have a certain amount of clarity about what's really
Mhm.
important to them
Yeah.
based on what they've gone through.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the positives, that there is a
Mhm.
clarity and there is a realization that we really do need each other. We are really the only thing we can control, like you were saying. Our
Mhm.
relationship is the only thing we can control, like you were saying earlier. Um, and that, which leads us right into what we're seeing that is helping couples, what we're
Mhm.
noticing couples that are doing that is working to help them through these struggles. That they're really recognizing that doing things for each other really does help. The
Mhm.
little things that they're doing, bringing each other a cup of coffee or giving each other a moment, does really help de-escalate the fights.
Mhm.
Just little check-ins on how are you doing actually provides a pressure
Mhm.
release that allows them to not have it build and blow up
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. And we've been talking
Yeah.
about that in the Wonder Couples class. I mean, just how profound it is, the being seen, to just to be seen as, oh wow, you're struggling. Can I do something nice for you? Can I take care of you in this moment? Can I put you before
Hmm.
before myself for a moment? I think is really a huge helper. And I think that if we do sort of a post-mortem is such a grim word, but a kind of after, if we look at arguments afterwards, so much can be taken care of through, if I had just had a little bit more capacity to do for my partner at in that moment, we probably really would have found our way through this without so much, without accruing so much difficult feeling and going through such a difficult situation. Um, Hi, will this stay on here?
Yes, it will.
Hi,
You can come
Iris.
back and watch it. You can come back and watch it at your leisure, and
Yes.
it will be also on our YouTube channel if you wanna check it out there.
I was jumping around a bit, so I want to take responsibility for that. You mentioned some of the good things already that are what's helping couples through. You normalized some of this, and that that we're just in this extraordinary time, and so everybody's sort of giving each other the a certain amount of just, hey, this is, we can't expect to be functioning at the same level that we normally do, especially those of us like you were talking about who have gone through big traumas, or going, in the big T trauma part of this.
Right.
And we talked about not making big decisions during this time as being helpful. And I talked a little bit about the falling apart as just an indication of, hey, we're human and we're going through a tough time. So
Mhm.
that's me cleaning up from jumping ahead.
That's fine.
And now we just so that we catch up on what is helping couples through.
Well, what you just said reminded me to say, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a lot of, I mean, you talked about it a little bit and talking about the pressure we put ourselves under, that we're a very pressure driven society, but there's also a little bit of a competitive or comparison thing, that people don't feel like they have legitimate reason to be stressed because they're
Mm,
not a frontline health worker, because they have their job and have stable housing. Um, And I really want to acknowledge that this is stressful for everybody. And there's the capital T trauma of being a first line responder and seeing the virus up close and what it's doing to people and to families. And then there is the sort of what I call lower T trauma, lowercase trauma, that is living through this sort of unknown period with, we could get the virus and we don't know what could happen if we get sick. Our kids could get sick. We could lose our job. This could stretch on for forever. Our kids' camps might be canceled. Our trips might be canceled.
Hmm.
What's going to happen to this or that? That is sort of traumatic to have so much thrown into the unknown and thrown into upheaval. So to really give yourselves permission to feel how you're feeling about this and to allow yourself the stress that you're having. And I really am urging this with couples to support each other and finding this really helpful, that seeing that you were talking about before, of seeing where your partner is actually at, not where you think they should be at, but where they are actually at, and
Hmm.
giving them the space to feel whatever they're feeling.
Yeah.
So
And in
there's
that,
my
that's your, in that,
that's my spiel.
your spiel. I like your spiel. In that is structure, that we talked about last time. That this, that I talk to couples about, like, we're kind of building sandcastles here, in terms of, you build it and it falls down, and that's just par for the course, because so much of our lives right now changes so quickly. One day the kids are out of school until May 1st, and then now all of a sudden it's the end of the school year. So, like, we do have to keep build, but the point being is that there's importance in building the structure. And it, especially with kids, it really helps them to know that their adults are building structure. I think the kid in us, in our partner, is really helped by, okay, I show up to make structure with you, and I'm going to pass the baton to you, as to agreements also falls within
Mhm,
that. So will you talk a little
mhm.
bit about agreements?
Yeah, I mean, as we've said, this quarantine will be over eventually, whether it's 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years from now. God, no. It will end. So this is a temporary struggle, but some of the gains that people are making, even these couples that are having a really hard time, are in finding what is working and realizing, wow, I wish we had done this earlier. And agreements is one of those areas that couples are finding really profoundly helpful. Some of them are unique to quarantine. That I agree that you do the homeschooling from 9 to 11. I'll do it from 1 to 3, so we each get a chunk of uninterrupted work time. But some are more long lasting, and they're realizing the importance of having these agreements of, we need to have sacred time that's just for us, because when we don't have it, we don't do as well.
Hmm.
Or we do need to find a time to air our grievances, so that things don't build up.
Hmm.
Because when they build up, it really doesn't go well. We need to commit to checking in on each other. Those sorts of things are some of the agreements that couples are finding, and each couple is different in terms of what agreements they need. But that's one of the things that all of my couples have found helpful, and are realizing they will carry those on long past quarantine.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and just a plug for a little bit, I think a little bit goes a long way. I mean, I really think that, um, at this time, if it's the little thing that the cup of coffee you bring your partner, or it's the 20 minutes that you carve out at the end of the day for each other, it's the thinking together about, how the kids' schoolwork is going to get done. Those are the kind of things that make people go, oh, I can, if there's a choice between we go to war, or we make peace here, it's those little things that go a far way in tilting things towards peace, on a
Yep.
daily basis.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I think you touched on this a little, but I'm going to expand on it. The taking turns, giving each other not divided, but unique time to talk about how things are going, taking turns to fall apart, or just taking turns having space, taking up the room, taking up time on their own,
Hmm.
is really necessary and really works, because particularly now, you can't have everything you need. You can't both have everything you need all the time
Hmm.
because those needs conflict with each other. And so that's one of the things that I've worked with couples outside of quarantine and not been successful. Couples really bump up, but I want what I want. And now through this quarantine, they're realizing, okay, well, it's just not physically possible for us to both get to do what we want to do right now. So we have to take turns. And they're noticing how much that benefits them to take those turns.
Hmm.
Both in good times and in bad, both in the sort of proactive, okay, you need to make sure you get exercise and get out of the house. I need to make sure, all right, when are you going to do it? When am I going to do it?
Hmm.
And then it works and it's been fairly seamless and it's helped them prevent worse struggles. So
Yeah.
that's one that couples have really learned
Yeah.
are
And a plug for there's still room actually in the Wednesday night Wonder Couples class where you actually get an opportunity to do this taking care of your partner. And
yes.
it's cool because you actually, you get to get out of the thinking of, I think I know what my partner wants, and we really have exercises that are really
Mhm,
well designed to help you learn actually what does my partner really want. I have these
mhm,
ideas, but what does my partner really want? And so
right.
Wednesday night, if you want to join us, an hour and 15 minutes, starting at 7:30 p.m. East Pacific Standard Time. Um, I
We're on the
just
West Coast.
thank you. I just lost track of that. You can actually do some of this giving to your partner some exercises, and we'll be repeating that class. So if people want to come back
Yeah.
in.
It was really fun to watch the couples last week who came in and through pact we are trained to notice the micro expressions and the physical changes that take place, and so we had 8 or 9 pretty stressed couples
Hmm.
that came in, and then at the end of the hour and 15 most of them were totally physically transformed as a result of this exercise. So it was so cool to get to watch that take place.
Yeah,
Why I love pact and why I think it's the most helpful
yeah,
um, support to couples.
and
Anyway,
yeah.
there's our shameless plug.
Well, that's, I mean, yes, it's shameless. And I will say that, I mean, we've done what, four Wonder Couples classes now? Is that right? Three or four?
For
Four. And
four.
four. And I mean, I am really feeling like um, a believer, especially for right now, because I think that so much of what we need right now from in our couples, and what I need in my own couple, I'll speak for myself here too, is sort of more bottom up kind of feeling. We're taking care of each other's bodies as opposed to solving this mentally, which none of us have the capacity to figure out the COVID-19 mentally.
Right.
And so right now there's just a certain kind of feeling of like, I think our bodies just need to be around in caring environments where we're really looking out for each other, and that's what's been so exciting to me about the classes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh,
So the last thing
I'm in
I
a
would
hurry.
say about no, that's all right. The last thing I would say about um, what has worked and what I think is really vitally important for couples to continue to focus on is to normalize, and this is a reiteration, but to normalize that we're going to have moments as couples where we fall apart, where we're not at our best, where we're not doing the right thing, where we're just a mess. And um, it's okay. These are transitory states, and we will move back out of them. So try and let yourself struggle and give yourself permission, not to, whatever, all filters off and say what you want to say, but to not catastrophize having a really hard time right now. It
Hmm.
is a really hard time for the world. And if your relationship isn't struggling, that would be, that would be unusual because this is really stressful. And so as a relationship, it's going to impact us.
Hmm.
I just really want to normalize that for folks and not have them make meaning out of it that it means something bad about their relationship.
Hmm.
One of the questions I always get asked in my office and in teletherapy is, should it be this hard? Does
Mm.
it mean something that our
Mm.
relationship is this hard? And I always laugh and I say, man, Hollywood has done a number on us that we should have these easy, stress-free, joy-filled relationships all the time, and that's just not possible because we're human beings are a mess as a species. We're sort of a disaster,
Hmm.
and we have two nervous systems that are very complicated, and it's impossible to have that go smoothly all the time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and
another spiel by me.
yeah, no, good spiel, and I would just add, that that this is it. It's a struggle, that there are struggles here, and that within the struggles is if we can kind of stay with each other, without with I think that what I'm trying to say is that there's real opportunities for intimacy, to build intimacy here, and that we can really, if we keep in mind that sure everybody's going to fall apart, and that we're going to make it to the other side of this as a couple. If you're able to do that, it opens up new avenues for intimacy between people, because you know each other in really, really tough times, and that ends up being over the course of a lifetime, which is really what we're, pact is really about long term. How do you build a long term sustainable relationship? And it's not through just, all the good times. It's when stuff falls apart, and we put it and we figure it out together, and that becomes the key to intimacy,
Hmm.
or one
Yeah,
big
it
key to
becomes
intimacy.
yeah, that scar tissue becomes stronger.
Hmm.
Those places where we were injured become stronger if we use it to grow from.
Yes.
There's me being woo woo. Um, well, and I'm encouraging couples to see past the quarantine, to think about their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan, their 20-year plan,
Hmm.
to focus on a place when they've gotten past this. What will they look back on this time with, and what will they be happy they hung on for
Mm.
when they're taking the second honeymoon, or some couples that have had to delay their marriages taking their first honeymoon, but how can they look forward to try and help them get through? So that's
Hmm.
another thing that I'm finding couples really find useful.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's really nice, because you do have a real counterpoint here. I mean, that we don't that because we, it's like spring is such a good example. When we're out, we're so used to just sort of emerging from our houses and enjoying the sunshine. And when you don't have that, it gives you a counterpoint to go like, wow, well, when I do get out, when we do get to Hawaii, or when we do go on our honeymoon, how are we going to be together as a couple? That's a nice point. Yeah.
Yeah. So this wonder couples thing, what
Yeah.
is it?
What is it?
What is it? Why are we doing it?
Why are we doing it? Well, we're doing it because we saw a need for the kind of care that happens in pact therapy, that couples, a certain within pact therapy, there's really a lot of learning to care for your partner, and we saw a need to provide those exercises to couples in an ongoing way, but particularly right now during the shelter in place, and during the times of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
else you'd add to that about why?
Well, just as a very, I mean, these are short classes. It's the length of a yoga class, and we one of our taglines is it's like yoga for your relationship. To make it doable for people, an easy way for folks to drop in. They can take one class. They can take the classes that interest them, or they can take the whole lot of them, and they can take them repeatedly if they want to come back and experience the exercise, because it is each week is designed to help them have an experience together that helps them have a felt sense of how to do this secure functioning thing that we're talking about. And we wanted to make it accessible for people, both financially and physically, during quarantine. That, I mean, it's going to be difficult to come to a 2 hour or a 3 hour class, but to do an hour and 15 minutes, long enough that they can put their kids in front of the TV and probably sneak away.
Hmm.
So to make it accessible in in this time of stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it'll be helpful for people to know what actually happens in a class. So there's it happens on Zoom. So it's you're all you really need is a computer with an internet connection, and a quiet space. Um, it the classes are an hour and 15, as Carolyn said, and then and we usually do we do a short exercise, and then we explain a secure functioning concept. About something very specific. So we want these things to be immediately sort of applicable to your situation. So it might be how to fight well, or it might be
how to keep the sexy alive in your relationship.
right, how to keeping the spark alive. And so we introduce that topic and we explain it through a secure functioning lens. And then we have a short question and answer. It's not too in depth. It's not therapy. We're not there to really process big relationship stuff, but it's more to introduce you to a concept. And then we have a longer exercise where you really get to sort of experience this concept with your partner in real time, in the comfort of your own home. And then we usually close out with a nice sort of goodbye exercise. And then the hour and 15 is up.
Yeah.
Sound like it?
And like you said, yeah. And, we have a class on fighting well. We have a class on keeping that spark alive. That agreements thing we talked about. We have a class about making successful agreements where the couples will get to practice that. We have an exercise like we talked about where we're taking turns. We're talking about wiring our nervous systems together. Trying to remember, there are 8 different classes that we offer currently. We're going to be coming up with new ones as lots of people are finding use.
Oh, I got another one, the 5, 10, 15-year plan into the future.
Oh, right.
So
Yes.
that was another one of the classes.
Yep. How to repair well, so how to make successful apologies, because that's a struggle that a lot of couples have, of how do I make this problem go away, because it keeps he or she keeps bringing it up, and I've apologized 100 times, and well, that's you haven't figured out the sort of itch to scratch for your partner of what you need to say or do that makes them feel repaired about whatever injury is there.
Yeah.
So we've got a class about that where we'll help couples learn to do that.
And it's a nice if you're in couples therapy, and it's a nice complement to couples therapy because you can practice some of the skills from couples therapy. It's also, you don't need to be in couples therapy to be there. And if you've ever wondered about what a retreat is like, a couples retreat, this is like sort of like a mini version of that. And you don't have to travel for it, and you don't have to kind of it's much less expensive. So check it out. And I think if nothing else,
it's like a little date night for couples. It may not sound all that romantic, but the exercises actually are kind of romantic. So it's a way of getting away with your partner.
Yeah, I've actually found it to be not only very sweet, but also romantic in the sense that that the classes it's really, you're not focused on the other couples in any way, shape, or form. You're focused on your partner and really tending to your partner and your relationship. So that's where the romance is.
We have the microphones muted for everybody, so you can't. No one can hear you, and you can't hear anybody else during most of it, unless we open it up for questions, so that you're getting a private moment with your partner. So.
WWW. Does anybody say that anymore? I don't think that's been said in the last 5 years.
Welcome it back. You're so retro.
HTTPS. No, wondercouples.us is the domain name.
How many S's, Jason?
Oh, God. Did I really ask that?
You did.
No, I didn't. That's getting edited out. I'm going to spend 5 hours figuring out how to make that perfectly edited out. Anyway, people probably don't even know what we're talking about, but in the beginning, I asked how many S's. And anyway, so if you're a frontline healthcare worker dealing directly with COVID-19, you can get a free class. Um,
It was our pleasure to get to offer some extra support to those heroes who are under even more stress than everybody else. It's our way of giving thanks.
Great. Anything else, Carolyn, on that?
No, I just would say you can take as many or as few classes as you like. You can just come in and check out one. We're going to be adding different times because we have some folks on the East Coast and in Europe that want to take the classes, and our evening classes aren't really the right time of day. So look for daytime classes or nighttime classes, depending on where you are, coming up soon, and they'll all be found at wondercouples.us.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions out there. Thanks, Iris, for tuning in. This will be available for you to watch forever.
Ever and ever. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you. And goodbye.
Goodbye. Lovely to see you guys.
Okay.
Take care.